Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Well, today I want to ponder the tendency we all have to make judgments about other people. Now, this is unavoidable. Whenever there is another person in our world, regardless of the role they have, our mind will naturally seek to categorize them somehow, so we have some idea of how to deal with them. We have different rules for people we know through our occupation, our families, or in romantic relationships, and so on. And at a very instinctive level, our unconscious mind wants to know if a person is a friend or foe. Can we be relaxed, or do we need to be on our guard? And there's nothing wrong with doing this. Like I said, it's probably instinctive. You can, in fact, observe animals doing this. You bring a new cat home from the shelter, it doesn't know what to make of you, and so it will try to figure out whether you are a friend or a foe. Can you be trusted or not? Do they need to keep their distance or can they relax? Well, we all have an unconscious set of rules for interacting with others. Now, I believe that where we get into trouble is when we try to hold others accountable to our beliefs about how people should behave, and instead of recognizing that other people have agency. They get to be in the world the way they want to be in the world. They don't have to conform to our expectations. Demanding that others be the way we want them is a form of intolerance. And even worse is when we try to shape others so they become more like the way we think they should be. Counselors have a name for that enterprise. It's called Doing the Pygmalion Project. Now that name comes from the Greek legend of Pygmalion told by the poet Ovid. It was said that there was a sculptor and a king named Pygmalion. He found that every woman he met was lacking in the qualities he thought a woman should have. So he resolved just to remain celibate and to fill his time with the art of sculpture. Well, eventually he crafted a sculpture of a woman that was everything he thought a woman should be. And in fact, he fell in love with the image. He would bring it offerings of fine clothing and food. He created a magnificent bed on which the sculpture could repose, and he kissed it lovingly every day. Then, on the festival day of the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Pygmalion made an offering and prayed that he could have a bride who was like his statue. Well, he returned home and kissed the statue of the beautiful woman, only to find that her lips were soft and warm. Aphrodite had granted his wish, and his statue had come to life, and they were married. So the idea is to literally create another person in the image of who you want them to be. The psychological Pygmalion project is when you try to do this by shaping, that is through 1,001 subtle reinforcements and punishments. You shape the behavior and the manner of another person so they behave like you want them to instead of how they want to behave. and counselors are pretty unanimous that this is a very bad idea and seldom ends well. But we hypnotists see this all the time. I mean, every practitioner probably has the experience of getting a call about a prospective client, except the call isn't from the client, it's from his wife or girlfriend. And then he shows up, and it's always a guy. He shows up with a list of upgrades the wife or girlfriend wants the hypnotist to kind of install in the client, so he becomes the man she wants him to be. This never works. And even if it did work, it wouldn't be healthy. Now, typically, a hypnotist will either decline this work altogether or switch it around so the guy becomes strong enough to stand up to the attempts at manipulation. But things like this do happen in other contexts. Parents will try to shape their children to be the way the parent wants. Never mind that the child is a human being with the right of self-determination. Bosses do this to subordinates. Teachers and professors do it to students. Preachers do it to congregations. Now, in times past, I would sometimes consult with troubled churches who were having conflict around their ministers. I mean, you'd hold a listening session and the complaints about the minister would be all over the map. And very often, these complaints were self-contradictory. The minister speaks too fast, except someone else thinks the minister speaks too slow. The minister is too liberal, except others believe that the minister isn't liberal enough. You get the idea. In one of these situations, I actually found myself saying, hey, the minister is allowed to have a personality. That means he or she will have preferences, likes, dislikes, skills, and weaknesses. They are a human being. Believe it or not, life does not consist of the opportunity to meet perfect people. And it's madness to believe otherwise. All of us need to go through life, not just with tolerance, understanding that others will not necessarily live as we think they should, but learning to enjoy the fact that people are different. Now, many of you know that I'm a total geek for Renaissance fairs. I go to my home fair, Bristol, Wisconsin, every year. I have for decades. And one of the things I enjoy doing while I am there, because having attended for so many years, I've seen most of the acts, and in many cases know the vendors, the craftspeople, and the performers. So I like to just sit and people watch. That is, just enjoy seeing how people present themselves. Now, at a Renaissance fair, people will often be in costume, called garb. And there is no limit to how much someone can spend on their garb. Because the costume is that important, people tend to make a statement about themselves by how they dress, often expressing part of themselves that they otherwise keep hidden from the mundane world. So a woman who is actually pretty shy might show up at the fair dressed as a harlot or a courtesan. Guys might show up as Vikings or knights or pirates. In all cases, they're expressing themselves in a way they can't do elsewhere. And I find it just a ton of fun to observe that and wonder who these people are really deep inside. People watching reminds me that everyone is unique and fun and kind of neat in their own way, and that everyone has a right to be who they are. And I find that this insight really helps me at other times. I mean, unless someone is actively doing something criminal or abusive, I enjoy getting to know people for the wonderfully imperfect and unique people they are. Conformity isn't something I admire. There is a wonderful poem about the uniqueness and odd mixture of things called Pied Beauty by the 19th century poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. The poem goes, "Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple color as a brindle cow, for rose mows all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire coal, chestnut falls, finch's wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim. All things counter original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how. With swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him." You see, it's in the odd things, the unique things, that give life its texture and delight. It gives people that too. Life does not consist of the opportunity to meet perfect people, because if it did, life would be terribly dull. Life consists of the opportunity to meet imperfect people, because that makes them interesting. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject. I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my work and my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out. Have a great week.